Berachot Parak Bet Mishnah Dalit. Very short Mishnah with some very interesting and important implications. Says the Mishnah, Ha'umnin, umnin are people who are workers. Korin Berosh Ha'ilan or Berosh Nidbach. They read the Mishnah, they can say Kriat Shema at the top of a tree or on the top of a wall. Let's say you're picking plants, you're picking trees, you're picking fruit, and you find yourself smack in the middle of the morning and you didn't say Kriat Shema yet. So the Mishnah says you don't have to come down. Rather, you can say Kriat Shema sitting at the top of the wall. What they're not permitted, that which one is not permitted to do during Tefillah, during Shemona Esrei. So we see from here that Kriat Shema requires a certain level of kavanah, a certain level of Ol Malchut Shamayim, but it's not the same thing as when a person is davening Shemona Esrei. Because when you're davening Shemona Esrei, you're talking to God. You're communicating with God, you're standing, you're supposed to have a certain level of kovod rosh, of seriousness and attention, and you can't do that while you're on top of a tree. And even if a person says they could do it while they're on top of the wall, Chazal were very much afraid that you would fall or not concentrate appropriately. So on the one hand, dangerous. On the other hand, it doesn't lend itself to good kavanah. On the other hand, it does tell you, where the Rambam says the following. The Rambam writes, Mishaya osek b'malacha. A person is in the middle of work, so it's not just someone in a tree, but anyone who's doing work. Mafsik ad she'yikara parsha rishona kula. You can say Kriat Shema while you're in the tree, but you you must stop doing what you're doing, at least for the first parsha. And the same thing is true of a person doing work. You're in the middle of davening, you're in the middle of doing your work. The halacha says, the Rambam says, you should stop what you're doing, just for the first parsha. Because remember we said that minimum kavanah is for Shema Yisrael, and the second minimum is parsha rishonah, is the first parsha. So if you're in the middle of doing what you're doing, let's say you're a cardiac surgeon, your hands are in the middle of the patient, nonetheless, you still can recite Kriat Shema. You should stop what you're doing. You can recite Kriat Shema, at least the first chapter, have in mind, have proper kavanah, and then continue what you're doing. You don't have to scrub out, you don't have to wash up. You can recite Kriat Shema, and then say the second and third chapters, even while you're continuing with surgery. I'm not sure I would recommend that. Says the Rambam continues quoting our Mishnah, Afilu haya omed b'rosh ha'ilan o b'rosh ha'kotel, koreh b'mkomo, you read in your place, umevarach lefanea u'la'acharei. And he adds also, you recite the Berachot of Kriat Shema. Let's say you're in the middle of surgery, you'll never make it on time for Zman Kriat Shema, up till 3 hours, you're going to miss the time. You can start at Yotzer Or and say all of the Berachot, says the Rambam, the Berachot lefanea ul and Shema, and the only time you really have to stop is for the first parsha of Kriat Shema. Now I just find this Mishnah fascinating because it really always spoke to me about the idea that there's real life, that people have real lives, that it's not always possible for everyone to make it to minyan or to daven on time. Very often, the surgeons, I use the example of surgeons, is a good example because surgeons have early surgery, 6 a.m., sometimes it's before sunlight, and the surgery can go a long time. And Chazal understood that and appreciated that and said, okay, so how are we going to mesh the need for you to say Kriat Shema with very real reality that your hands are in the middle of doing something, you're in the middle of a surgery, or you're on top of a wall, or you're picking a tree. You have obligations towards your employer also. So you can't just say, I got to daven Kriat Shema. In Israel, actually, you have a right to daven, and that's very nice, but it doesn't always work out that way. Rav Melamed is a very interesting comment. Rav Melamed has a comment in his B'nai Halacha, which is available online, and he says the following. He writes the following at the very end. He says, "Mi'ikar adin efshar likro shema afilu b'halicha, shene'amar u'belechlecha b'derech." You can recite Kriat Shema even when you're walking, but Chazal said a person is not permitted. It's not worthwhile that a person should take upon himself Malchut Shamayim kederech arai. So you should stop walking. I would say if you're in your car and you're in traffic, you could probably continue to recite Kriat Shema. He also writes the following: Efshar lilmod mehalacha zo. You can learn from this. Ha'emunah ena davar minutak meha'olam. It's such a beautiful idea. Faith is not separated from the real world. Shirak be'tenucha mesuyemet eshar levat ta'ah. I can only say I believe in God. I can only be makabel or malchut shamayim if my mind is calm and I'm not doing something. Ela ha'emunah mitbateit b'kriyat shema shayechet b'chol matzavei ha'chayim shel ha'adam ba'olam hazeh. Rather, faith is expressed in Kriyat Shema no matter what situation you find yourself in. You can read Shema in any situation you find yourself in. It's a beautiful idea. no matter where you are, you're in the middle of work, you're in there, your hands are full of something, you're in the middle of driving, in the middle of doing something, that's never a reason to say, I can't express my faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Have a great day.